The Public Servants Association is calling for an urgent provincial education summit in KwaZulu-Natal to address severe challenges facing the province's education system, particularly in view of 11,000 educator posts that are at risk owing to ongoing budget cuts. The PSA says it is alarmed by government's inability to safeguard critical education positions and its failure to provide the necessary resources to sustain quality education. PSA KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Manager Mlungisi Ndlovu joins us now for more on this conversation. Mlungisi, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, you are calling for a summit to take place in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, this is in light of the fact that 11,000 jobs of, teachers and educators can be at risk here. This is a major concern.
It is indeed. Good evening. As PSA KwaZulu-Natal, we called for these discussions because when you talk about the job cut in the education system, you're killing the heart of the educations. You'll recall that even the former MECs have indicated that they are unable to fill about 4,000 vacancies. That result to higher learners in classes. And in terms of the provisions in their own department policies is that they need to have 1 to 10 in terms of ratio, but currently we have classes that are overcrowded. So if you cut down this particular job, it's going to create challenges because they are not filling positions. They are not filling positions. They are educators that are existing the system. It is for this reason, as PSN we are saying, let's have a dialogue. Let's do the assessment. What we have achieved in the past 8 years, what needs to happen, because most of the educators in our province are frustrated. Schools can't be managed without educators.
And of course, I mean, you are talking largely when it comes to the challenges already existing in the education sector, is the problems around overcrowding. And I mean, should this go ahead and 11,000 educators lose their jobs, this will even mean more overcrowding. What does that mean for the quality of our education in the KwaZulu-Natal province? Should we see 11,000 teachers, ultimately lose their jobs?
In actual fact, even although government don't want to say people will lose jobs, but we are aware that they are not filling the positions. And the consequences of that, when you have overcrowding learners in schools, you will not be able to provide quality educations. And you must also have an understanding, government need to take a decision. Do they want to invest in education? Because if you cut down on educators and if you don't take seriously the education sector, it's going to affect all the professions. All of us, we are part of our education systems. So that's why, as PSA in the province, we are challenging the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal and the MEC to say, let's engage, because it's not only the concerns of the department, it affects the entire society. And there are some of the schools that don't have certain teachers on critical positions. As a result, our educators are working in a very unconducive environment. I know government want to focus on the output in terms of the grade 12 result, and you'll also appreciate that government have taken a decision to ensure that it will be compulsory for all the learners to start from the grade R. Now they need to integrate all these grade R teachers, and there are no positions. There are no permanent positions for them. They are just earning stipend. These are the challenges that we need to be able to attend to it. Issues of infrastructure, but government seem to have budgeted more on the nutrition. We are not saying nutrition is not important, but you should be able to reprioritize your budget in such a way that you don't compromise on education. There is no country in the world that will compromise on education where you don't want to fill posts of educators. You're not going to have your engineers. You're not going to have your economic growth. So it's not only the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We have seen what has happened in the Western Cape, and some of the reckless comments from the minister to say they will easily cut educators, they will not allow people to fill jobs. They are cutting budget. When you cut budget in the education, are you serious as a country? Section 29 of the Constitution talk about the basic right we must ensure that we have access. Government has worked well in ensuring that there is access in education since 1994. What they are trying to do now, they are reversing. As PSA, we are saying, let's have this dialogue. Let's ensure that we protect the sector. Let's protect the educators. Let's recognize the educators, because the way we're treating them, now some of them want to leave the sector and go to the private sector. Are we going to afford that particular situation? Let's not create a crisis like load shedding that we have created before. They are saying there is a crisis. They can't fill position because there is no money. Where is money? There was mismanagement of the money. We must be able to engage, protect our teachers, educators who work in deep rural areas where there is no network, there is nothing at all. Now, if you want to take out this position, as PSA, we are saying we must stand up, we must be united, we're willing to engage, we're willing to provide solutions. Let's get all scholars and ensure that we protect our education system.
And I mean, you also speak about mismanagement of funds, Mlungisi, and of course the solutions you want to see in the sector. But at the same time, what do you make of the school of thought that says that when it comes to the education sector, most of the money already goes to the paying of salaries?
You see, one of the mistakes that government is doing is to think that they will get free service. Education is an expense on its own. To get an educator who's qualified, they must be paid. In actual fact, educators are underpaid. So if that school of thought is saying that educators must not be paid, how are you going to get your manpower? So we must remove this mentality that some of the employers that have, that workers must not be paid. They are providing services. These are the qualified educators, some of them with PhD, masters, who spend most of their time educating the society. The education system is not only for the department or for these educators. We are saying government must stop complaining. They must make sure that they take action against mismanagement of fund, wasteful expenditure, as we have seen in the Auditor General report. They must take responsibility because they created this mess. But we're also calling the private sector that they must come on board. The private sector tend to invest more in private schools. We need companies to invest in deep rural areas, in township, so that we can be able to educate our society. So we totally disagree with that particular view. And people who believe that if you work in the public sector, you must not ask for salary increases. So you must not be able to maintain your living. That's why you have educators today who cannot even able to afford money for transport. We must protect our educators, and that's what we are doing as PSA. We prepare to do. We'll continue to engage and ensure that every workers who deserve to be paid must be paid. Ministers earn millions. They drive free cars. They get free food and free everything, that the people who work on the ground, when they're supposed to get increment, it's become a problem. We are saying the society must be involved. They must question what's happening in schools, because our educators, principals are struggling. We must be able to scrutinize our education system. Yes, we have more learners that have access. When they have this particular access, we must be able to take action. So it is for this view to say, when you don't want to fill the position, what is the human rights saying? Because it's a constitutional right matter. Government has obligation, constitutional responsibility to ensure that there is educator in each and every school, and ensure that they are paid, they are resourced. You know, it's very embarrassing if you can go some of the schools that do not have electricity. Some of them do not have water. Let's have this engagement, and we are calling on the politician, business society, and everyone. Let's work together to ensure that we don't lose what we have gained in the past 8 years.
All right, Mlungisi, thank you so much for your time. That is Mlungisi Ndlovu there. He is from the PSA in KwaZulu-Natal. He's the provincial manager, of course, calling on for the province to hold a summit to discuss some of the challenges facing teachers, and particularly the risk of 11,000 jobs at the same time.